It was the night of June 11th, 1962, and all seemed quiet on Alcatraz Island. The notorious federal prison sat isolated and alone in the icy waters of San Francisco Bay. Inside, the concrete corridors lay shrouded in darkness, interrupted only by the faint glow of guards' flashlights as they made their rounds. Alcatraz was known as The Rock, a place where only the most dangerous men were sent, a fortress built to be inescapable. Yet that night, beneath the shadow of nightfall, 3 inmates were daring to do the impossible. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, had carefully crafted a plan that defied logic, a scheme pieced together with makeshift tools and a grit that only men with nothing to lose could muster. As guards walked past their cells, they were oblivious to the great escape unfolding right under their noses. The men had one chance to break free from America's most feared prison. And so began one of the most daring and mystifying jailbreaks in history, a mystery that remains unsolved to this very day. Frank Morris, born into hardship, was a man who learned to survive from a young age. Orphaned early, he bounced from one foster home to another, always struggling to fit in. In those unstable years, Morris found solace in one thing: his mind. He had a high IQ, reportedly over 130, which made him stand out, even among career criminals. His intelligence wasn't enough to keep him out of trouble, though. A string of crimes followed him, from petty thefts to armed robbery. Eventually, the law caught up to him, and after failed attempts to escape from lesser prisons, he found himself at Alcatraz. This was supposed to be the end of the line, but for Morris, it was just the beginning of his next escape plan. Then there were the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, sons of migrant workers who grew up in the harsh fields of rural Georgia. From childhood, they toiled alongside their parents, picking fruit under the blazing sun. They turned to crime together, robbing banks in hopes of escaping poverty. Their loyalty to each other was unbreakable. They'd grown up together, worked together, and when caught, they even went to prison together. After multiple failed escapes from other facilities, they too were sent to Alcatraz, the one prison no one was supposed to break out of. Inside Alcatraz, alliances were rare, dangerous, and potentially deadly. But when Morris ended up in a cell near John and Clarence Anglin, a quiet pact was formed. These men shared more than just a criminal history. They shared a desire for freedom. Each night, after the guards completed their rounds, the 3 of them would whisper through the thick concrete walls, trading ideas, daring each other to imagine the unthinkable, escaping from Alcatraz. Morris was the mastermind, and he knew that an escape plan couldn't rely on strength alone. It had to be clever. Slowly, an idea began to take shape, though it seemed like madness at first. Fake heads, makeshift tools, and a life raft made from raincoats. But the men believed in the plan. For 6 long months, they prepared for the escape, scavenging materials wherever they could find them. Broken spoons became chisels, while bits of wood and metal were turned into makeshift saws. Each night, they worked in silence, chipping away at the air vents behind their cells, knowing that even a single misplaced sound could cost them their lives. Slowly, painstakingly, they widened the holes, each night bringing them 1 inch closer to freedom. The prisoners' ingenuity extended far beyond just tools. To avoid detection, they needed to make sure their absence would go unnoticed. Using soap, toilet paper, and concrete dust, they crafted disturbingly lifelike dummy heads. These decoys, painted and complete with real human hair clipped from the prison barbershop, lay in their bunks each night. When guards walked by, it would look as though the men were sound asleep. But the escape didn't stop there. Raincoats were stolen from the prison's laundry, and over time, they amassed over 50 of them. In their cells and in a hidden utility corridor, they worked on a raft, sewing and gluing the raincoats together to create a craft that could keep them afloat across the icy, turbulent waters of San Francisco Bay. It was a desperate and ambitious plan, all done in secret, each step requiring patience and the hope that, when the moment finally came, they could slip away undetected. The air was thick with tension as Frank Morris, the Anglins, and another inmate, Alan West, prepared for the final phase of their escape. This was the moment they had been working towards for half a year. But as they worked their way out, Alan West ran into a serious problem. His air vent was still too small to crawl through. He had fallen behind in his preparations. With time running out, Morris and the Anglins were faced with a painful choice. They made the heartbreaking decision to leave West behind. Silently, the three men climbed through the holes they had carved, moving through the hidden utility corridor and up to the roof. The night was eerily silent, each step bringing them closer to freedom but one mistake away from a guard's flashlight. Carefully, they lowered themselves down the walls of Alcatraz and made their way to the shoreline. There, with their makeshift raft finally in place, they inflated it, their only hope against the treacherous waters. At approximately 10 p.m., they set off into the unknown, disappearing into the cold, dark expanse of San Francisco Bay. Dawn broke over Alcatraz on June 12th, and the guards were met with an unsettling sight: 3 empty cells and 3 eerie, lifelike dummy heads lying on the pillows. Panic set in, and soon Alcatraz was in full lockdown. News spread quickly, and the FBI launched one of the most exhaustive searches in its history. For days, agents scoured every inch of the shoreline, combing San Francisco Bay in search of any trace of the escapees. A few days later, a paddle and some personal items were found near Angel Island, roughly 2 miles from Alcatraz. It was an intriguing clue, but it didn't provide answers. The items suggested that the men had made it to the water, but no bodies were ever found, and no concrete evidence showed that they had made it ashore. For the FBI, the case was far from closed. Decades have passed, but the mystery of the Alcatraz escape lives on. Over the years, rumors have kept the story alive. In 1975, a photograph emerged, supposedly taken in Brazil, showing 2 men believed to be John and Clarence Anglin. Their resemblance was uncanny, but the FBI couldn't confirm it. Then, in 2013, the FBI received a letter allegedly from John Anglin himself. In it, he claimed that he and his brother had made it out alive and lived quietly for years. But the FBI found no conclusive evidence, and the letter only deepened the mystery. Even today, over 60 years later, the case remains open, a story that continues to fascinate and puzzle. Did the men survive, or did they perish in the cold waters of the bay? No one knows for sure. Alcatraz may have lost its prisoners, but it kept its secrets. The rock remains silent, even as the mystery endures. What do you think? Share your theories in the comments below. Did they make it, or was this one journey that ended in tragedy? We want to hear your thoughts.